All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College World podcast. Today, me and Nick here with our 2023 preview and prediction for the Kentucky Wildcats. Looking at this coaching staff, Mark Stoops, 66-59 record through 10 seasons. Been a decade already under him. Liam Cohen returns for a second stint as offensive play caller. Has a total of 4 years with the LA Rams and Sean McVay under his belt. Brad White, the defensive play caller, enters his sixth year with Kentucky. Wildcats, they return 14 starters, looking to rebound on offense. Looking at this offense, Nick, it was not good one bit. I mean, look at these numbers, flat out awful, especially when you had Will Levis at quarterback, a tremendous talent, 116th in yards per contest, points per game, they were 112th. The offensive line, of course, is a big reason for that. We'll start with that, Nick. Eli Cox was really disappointing. Will likely move from center to the right guard. Jagger Burton was a big liability, allowing 6 sacks at his left guard position. Marquise Cox comes over from NIU, was a 90.5 PFF pass blocker in his 4 games. He was great, 6'6", 309. Proved to be a valuable run blocker in 2021. You look at Kenneth Horsey, he was, second best pass blocker behind the departing Deshaun Manning. Cortland Ford, a respectable left tackle, comes over from USC. He's in a battle with Jeremy Flax at right tackle. Gave up a team-high 22 pressures. And then Tanner Bowles limited snaps at Alabama. He was used at 4 different snaps, though. They lose 4 guys in the portal on the offensive front. They added 4. This unit was absolutely terrible, Nick. Cox, I thought, would be really good. Of course, Liam Cohen comes in. He starts moving guys around. Some of these guys were here just 2 years ago when he was here. So he's moving guys to where he thinks they can thrive best. What are your thoughts on this O-line, on how bad they were last year and how much better they can be this year?
I certainly think it's important to move Eli Cox to right guard, and that's a solid spot for him. At center, that position is totally up for grabs. Potentially, true freshman Kobe Keenum could be fighting for that role there. Marquise Cox at left tackle, a much-needed improvement at left tackle. Cortland Ford is going to battle Tanner Bowles for that right tackle position. Bowles played at Alabama. He comes over. Overall, Kenneth Horsey at left guard as well. He's going to slot in and replace. Potential step up there as well. This team, the offensive line was terrible last year, right? There's a lot of work they have to. They move out Burton potentially to center. They put Horsey in there. Left guard. I mean, is that going to work? It seems like they're moving a lot of pieces and shuffling, trying to put a round hole here, moving pieces around. It seems like they don't really have it sorted out. They've shuffled basically the entire deck. They brought in some new pieces, and I'm just not entirely sure if it's going to lead to any increase in production.
The rest of the offense is actually pretty good. They return 8 starters. Of course, they lose Will Levis, their top rusher. Chris Rodriguez, whose physicality really carried this football team. He had to work hard last year. They return their top 5 pass catchers as well. Devin Leary comes over from NC State. He wasn't the greatest early on last season before he got hurt, but he does have top-notch accuracy, nice touch. Doesn't possess great physical tools, so he's certainly limited to being a pocket passer, which is just fine. So is Levis. The velocity does waver the further he throws the ball downfield. Can make some good throws on the move, though. Makes quick decisions and takes care of the football. 6'1", 215, Devin Leary. He's regarded as one of the highest-ranked players in this transfer portal. What are your thoughts on Devin? NC State had high expectations for them a season ago. Didn't quite go to plan one bit. This is still a player, though, I think is, held in high regard. And I think the SEC is certainly going to recognize that when he gets the ball.
Devin Leary certainly disappointed. A talented player when he came out of high school in New Jersey. Played at NC State. Had a good career under Dave Dorian. And now moves here under another coach at Mark Stoops and takes over this whole offense. The injury certainly was unfortunate for Leary last year, but there is so much raw talent. The accuracy and touch is fantastic. The pocket passer, which is really all you need him to be, right? If you can protect him, if this offensive line can stop protect him, you don't need him to run a whole lot. He can be that pocket passer. Great downfield, makes good decisions, great protection. He takes care of the ball, which I think is an improvement from Will Levis, who previously would make errant throws and make mistakes like that. I think Leary's going to cut down the mistakes. The turnovers are going to cut down heavily this year. Will Levis had 10 interceptions last year. I expect Leary to have half that this season. I think Devin Leary is a great fit for this offense. I think it was a great add out of the portal. Mark Stoops making work and trying to make Kentucky a competitive team in the SEC. Last season in the East before the divisions are scrapped, but this Kentucky team has some talent with Leary on offense.
Liam Cohen believes in balance and creativity, uses a lot of play action and tight ends in this pro-style offense, and I think they certainly have the pieces to be able to execute that around Devin Leary. Ray Davis from Vanderbilt, great vision, great patience to find the right crease, knows when to quickly get in gear. He also does lack speed and strength, but he is a reliable pass catcher, 5'9", 205. I think this is a very solid back. Ramon Jefferson, this is a guy I was high on when he was at Colorado last year before flipping his commitment from Sam Houston State to the Wildcats. Tore an ACL, I think it was on his first snap of the year. I was just devastated to see that. Ridiculously elusive, stops in the dime can cut, impressive speed, 1,200 plus yards in 2021. This is a guy I'm very excited to get on the field. nice duo here. This running game obviously needs big-time improvement next, because if that offensive line is as good as it was last year, which wasn't at all, they don't have that physicality in the backfield that might really allow these backs to suffer. So I think this offensive line has to progress just to benefit the talent they have in the backfield. Don't want to have a wasted season on the run, on the ground game.
Certainly going to have to find a way to make this offensive line productive. So this running game productive. I think Davis and Jefferson are two solid pieces. I think they both have high upside. You have McClain there as well, who had 278 yards last year on 4.7 yards per carry, about 60 attempts, limited appearance in 10 games. So overall, I think this is a nice backfield that has some good depth, but it's going to come down to whether or not the pass blocking is going to be there to create those holes for this team.
You look at the receiving core, this trio is one of the best in college football. Barry and Brown and Dane Key, they were two true freshmen last year that I expected to get on the field. We weren't sure what they would be able to do. On tape, we certainly found out. Brown, great second gear. His acceleration's insane. Elite speed. Makes the most out of his opportunities on those tunnel screens. Lethal return man at 6'1", 166. Dane Key, great hands of elite focus. This is a guy that, stayed put. He's from Lexington. Figured he would get on the field a good bit last year, and he did that. He's very good at coming down with the ball. Even if a defender draped all over him, not much yards after catch or speed. 6'3", 194. Tavion Robinson, dynamic, versatile slot weapon, very elusive in space, great quickness at the top of his routes, good route runner indeed. Needs to expand the tree a little bit. He's a Wan'Dale Robinson type player. Didn't have as big of an impact last year as we expected. But when you turn, in terms of trio, this is as good as it's going to get for Devin Leary here. Depth at the receiving core certainly is lacking, much like it was last year before a couple of these guys broke out. But this trio right here, Nick, I think they're going to be tough to defend on every given Saturday.
Fantastic trio. They return their top three receivers in these three guys, all of them, roughly around 500 yards receiving last year. Brown, 628, 12.6 yards per catch, 4 scores for him. Fantastic player. Dane Key, 519 yards, 14 yards per catch, 6 scores for him. Led the team in touchdown receptions. I love him a lot. You're right. 497 yards, so barely missed that 500 mark. 12.4 yards per catch, 3 scores for him last year. The speed, fantastic. Great route runner. He knows the playbook. He knows his routes inside and out. Yes, he could certainly expand and add some more tools there. High upside. Don't be surprised this guy kind of flies up in the talk of draft board after the season if he flies up and has a good season in Kentucky. I love the speed of him. He's a very exciting player in the slot. Perfect fit. Two freshmen on this team as well. Adrell Banks, Anthony Brown, that could potentially fight for some early on playing time. The depth is a concern, but those true freshmen do have some talent.
And you talk about the tight end usage on this football team. They're pretty deep at this position. Jordan Dingle and Josh Gaddis, 2 sophomores. They're really good. Isaiah Cummings, Brendan Bates, 2 seniors. So you got the younger guys better than the veterans, but that presence is still going to be noted. And they also have 3 true freshmen joining them at the position. They're very deep at tight end, Nick. All in all, B+ for me. The offensive line's obviously awful, but they have some experience coming back, some new players. I think Liam Cohen's going to get these guys pointed in the right direction. I think they'll progress just a little bit. And then I think at the skill position and then at quarterback, I think this is a really good offense. So B+ for me, which is hard to say considering the numbers you see above, which were just, god awful. But I think the potential is sky high for them, especially with Cohen coming back. What are your final thoughts?
A lot of potential here. I like the potential of this team. I like the coaching. I think Devin Leary is a fantastic pickup by the portal. Tavion Robbins, the player, highlighting potential breakout player. Love to see what he can do this year. B+ I think works for this as long as the offensive line kind of sorts out and figures out the damage that they have to repair from last season.
Looking at the defensive side of the ball, the Wildcats, they fielded a highly impressive unit, 12th in points per game and yards per game allowed, 7th against the pass, a little bit worse against the run, but overall this is a very sound unit that kept them in that game against Georgia, where their offense led by Will Levis just could not deliver. I think this is a very sound unit. You're going to start with this defensive line. It's a veteran group, especially on the interior. Octavius Oxendine, last year wasn't his best, but proved to be a solid run stopper in 2021. DeLone Walker, 6'6", 330, was highly impressive as a true freshman last year. Very good run stopper. I thought he was a great pass rusher. Another guy in Josiah Hayes, who's 6'3", 309. They need more production from this group, but I think what you see on paper is a very good start. Of course, this team only had 20 sacks a season ago, 104th in FBS, but they did stop the run very well, which is incredibly important in this physical conference in the SEC. They have J.J. Weaver coming off the edge. He's that typical hybrid edge defender. Good length that helps great separation, great asset coverage due to awareness. This team has done a great job. Brad White, being a linebacker coach, has done a great job at that position. I think this edge group, though, certainly needs to pick up the pace a little bit to max what I think is a pretty solid defensive line.
I like J.J. Weaver here. I think he's a solid piece. Last year, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks total. I think Weaver's got some good experience, solid player. Outside linebacker gets after the quarterback. Octavius Oxendine, I need to see a lot more out of him. He's got great size, just has not lived up to the expectations. He needs to prove that he has that talent that we know he has. Very talented piece. Delone Walker as well, 6'6", 330. I mean, incredible. Pretty good season as a true freshman. I mean, 40 tackles total, 4.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack for him as a true freshman. Solid numbers. He can, double those numbers this year. You certainly want to see that from him. Josiah Hayes as well, another good piece. I think this front seven, there is some talent here as we transition to this linebacker unit that has some production.
Yeah, you look at this team as a whole, they lost 8 players in the portal, including Justin Rogers up front. That's massive, of course. He goes to Auburn. Added 4 players. Then we get back 6 starters, losing Jordan Wright, DeAndre Square in the middle, Carrington Valentine, Kieran Smith in the secondary. But even with the losses of Square and Wright, this is still a really good linebacking core. Derek Jackson was the leading tackler, was an impressive run defender. Trevin Wallace was a great tackler, very impressive in coverage. Brad White is just a good linebacking coach. There's nothing else that can be said about that. At outside backer, guys like Keetron Wade, Tyrese Fearby, incoming 4-star Grant Godfrey. These are some good, young, talented players that are going to have to be big for them because that sack number has to get up. They have to be more competitive in that department. I know Georgia didn't have too many sacks this past year, but you're not the Bulldogs. They're probably the only team in FBS that get away with that. Kentucky needs to get more production, but I think, like you said, the front seven is some great talent. What are the expectations this year? 50th, almost against the run of season to go. I think that number is going to uptick just a little bit.
I think it upticks a little bit as well. I think Derek Jackson's a great player, leads the team in tackles, 67 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss. Wallace as well, 54 total tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. You want to see that sack number, increase for him. I think they'll be able to stop the run this year. I think there is some serious production potential there against the run. About 50th, they could probably be in that 40 to 45th range. There is some talent on this front seven. They can get after, as long as they can get after the quarterback and add that production, they could definitely improve this team.
Now looking at the secondary, it's a veteran safety group. Jalen Geiger's back from injury. Jordan Levitt shined in his absence. The other safety in Zion Childress, he was even better as a coverage defender and in the run. Geiger may occupy the slot. They do lose both starting cornerbacks. J.Q. Hardaway was a nice add, highly touted player from Luke Fickell's DB factory, 6'3", 200, has great potential. A lot of people expected him to go to Wisconsin. He ends up here in Lexington. Andrew Phillips was a quality player, mainly in the slot. They'll move him to outside corner. Giantaz Dunn from Ohio State saw the field on a limited basis in 2021. So I think this is a talented group. Experience is kind of iffy all around, but again, I think this veteran safety group is really going to lead the way here. Playing in the SEC, this was not a bad secondary last year, 7th against the pass. This was a very important part of their defense. Stetson Bennett really struggled against them when they came to Kentucky and played that game. So I think this is a unit that certainly can match up against most receiving cores in the SEC. What are your thoughts?
I think Lovett and Phillips are not bad pieces. Love, 62 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, 1.5 tackles for loss. I like Lovett, good leader there. Phillips, 31 total tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. I think there is some production there. I like what I see out of him. Childress as well has not played quite up to expectations. 34 total tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, plus a sack for him, 3 pass breakups. I think those guys are all solid pieces. Phillips has 5 pass breakups. So this is a good secondary. They gave some teams some trouble last year. Veteran leadership, a lot of guys returning that of experience. This is a solid secondary group.
I'm going to give them a B. I definitely think the pass rush and the ability to take the football away needs to improve. And I've certainly given higher grades to teams with worse defenses, at least in terms of talent. I don't know. Maybe that's being too harsh, but I definitely think it's going to be hard to live up to what they had a season ago, even though the departures really aren't that major. Returning 6 starters, I definitely a little more iffy on this defense than I probably should be because I think the front seven's good and the secondary, like you said, at safety, they're kind of set. So B for me. How do you feel?
I think they're pushing B+ here. I think the offense and defense both get a B+ grade for me. There's a lot of talent here. I like the secondary a lot. Good leadership, good experience. These guys break up passes. They get some interceptions here and there. As long as they can find a pass rushing pulse and get after the quarterback and start to pick up sacks, they got to increase that sack number. They can get that sack number higher. This defense will be fantastic. This Kentucky team could be good for a good season.
Look at the schedule preview and prediction. The return of Liam Cohen and the addition of Devin Leary at quarterback should allow this offense to be at least top 75 in total offense. Great trio of starting wide receivers and a deep backfield should allow this offense to generate more efficiency and yards per play. O-line will obviously go a long way in dictating how good this unit will be. Defense was great in 2022. They still have quality pieces at all levels, but the pass rush may certainly let them down. Overall, an easier schedule than most in the SEC. Final 6 out of this final 7 games, though, could certainly derail this team's season. I wouldn't be betting on the total, whatever it is. But I think this is going to be a good year for them. At Georgia, I think will be slip up there. And I think 2 November contests against Alabama and on the road in Columbia are going to be trip ups for them. Have them beating Tennessee at home. And, of course, Florida at home. Again, this is a pretty easy schedule, especially in September, Nick. I mean, those teams top to bottom this year are going to have an awful combined winning percentage. 9-3 for me. I certainly think this team can win the East if they can go on the road to Athens and stun the Bulldogs.
This is a good team. The schedule is very favorable. Nice draw. Of course, getting Alabama as your crossover opponent from the West, Kentucky fans might be a little disappointed about that. Of course, that will be a moot point in the future, so there'll be no more divisions. But outside of getting Alabama and having to travel to Athens, this schedule is very favorable. Kentucky, they could easily get 10 wins if South Carolina doesn't live up to expectations this year. That month of September, Ball State, EKU, Akron, Vanderbilt, Florida, very easy. 5-0 very easily there. Missouri, we have a lot of question marks there. Mississippi State, Louisville, so many question marks. Tennessee, a lot of question marks. This team's got a nice draw. I like the offense a lot. Devin Leary with the keys to the offense. If he's fully healthy and up to that level that we saw 2 years ago, the sky's the limit for Leary. I like what he can do a whole lot. The running back, as long as the offensive line can produce holes for the running backs, I think there's a good trio there they can work with. Wide receiving core, some good true freshmen to compete with the 3 starters. That trio is fantastic. Robinson, highlighting him as my breakout player. Love him a lot. The defense, so much talent. They return some nice production. The secondary is very solid. A lot of guys that Mark Stoops is going to find a way to get the most out of them. Stoops, great head coach, 10 years in Lexington, stabled the ship. I mean, he's a fighter. He cares about his guys. He goes in every single day and works hard for them. This Kentucky team's going to grind it out. They're going to be a good team. 9-3. They should be competitive in the East.
November 25th at Louisville against the newly revamped offense with a lot of talent. That'll be an interesting one as well. So the last 3 games of the year, certainly going to be really tough for the Wildcats. But again, 9-3. I think this is a really good football team. That's going to be it for today's episode. As always, Nick, I appreciate you breaking down the Wildcats with me. A very interesting football team we have on our hands this season.
Absolutely. An SEC team that I think does not get enough credit for what they've done over the past couple of seasons. Very talented team, top to bottom. Mark Stoops has built a culture in Lexington, a school that typically dominates in basketball. You think of Lexington, you think of a basketball town, but they're a damn good football team as well, and I love watching them play.
So, for today's episode, guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.